William de la Pole, first Duke of Suffolk, England, in 1396.
Dr. Holder, when do you want me to start?
Yeah, you can start now.
All right. So I'm Dr. Elana Farace. I'm a clinical psychologist here, and I've been, I volunteered to talk about this topic, managing children at home while working remotely. And at first I was thinking, you know, it's not like I'm an expert. None of us are experts on this. We've only been in lockdown for 6 weeks or so. But then I thought, you know, I have been a working mom for quite a number of years now. So, and a psychologist. So I'm just sharing with you kind of my thoughts. This is not a science-based paper or presentation, but it's kind of my 2 cents from the battlefield. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how I came to think about this. Then I'm going to go over the survival basics during this time of parenting and working from home. I'll go a little bit into the psychological factors that are at play in our kids all at this point. And then I'm going to go through kind of coping and suggestions by general age group. And then there'll be a time at the end, hopefully, for questions. And I'm including my email at the end, too, in case you don't get to ask your question live. And feel free to email me, and we can follow up from there. OK, so I developed the hashtag Professor Mom a long time ago when I was doing things like, you know, submitting an abstract or a grant application that was due at midnight and then getting up and frosting the Valentine's Day cookies that I had to send in with one of my kids for school the next day. I've always kind of thought somewhat ironically about the trade-off. And I've also gone through the different stages of life. You know, I've been a married working mom of a little tiny girl. Then I was a single mom unexpectedly for about 3 years, which was very educational. And then I remarried and inherited 3 more daughters. And I have their ages listed down here. So you can see with my oldest being 21, they're all 4 girls. So my viewpoint is skewed about being a mom of girls because it's what I have the most direct experience with. If you look at the age ranges, you can see that, yes, I did have 4 teenage girls simultaneously in my house. My stepkids are with me 95% of the time. So on the basis of that, I kind of took it and tried to put together this talk for if there's anything helpful for anyone. Let me see if I can pull this up quick. So going from mom of 1 to mom of 4 pretty much overnight was a big transition for me. It kind of summed up in this video. I hope that comes across as funny. So most people, when they acquire 4 children, they space them out at least 9-10 months apart. So it was kind of a big transition to all of a sudden get 3 more, like I said, overnight. So it's important to know that, you know, we're working from home, and that's a full-time job to work from home. But taking care of kids is a full-time job, and teaching others, even if it's just your kids, or if teaching is part of your job, is a full-time job. And managing a busy household with kids in it is also a full-time job. So we now have multiple full-time jobs that we're all fitting into the same time and space. Whereas, you know, some of us were juggling it better than others. This is my favorite little mom picture. I'm not sure what it says about me. I'm not sure if this is a plunger here or that she's holding on to, or a broom, or like a giant glass of wine. But you know, we had it sort of under control because we had childcare, we have before and after school activities, we have kids going out the door to school. We've got, you know, other activities, you can send them to carpool, etc. But with the shutdown, we've really lost our village. So it takes a village to raise a kid, and now it's basically just who's in our house at the moment. And then add in to all this full the idea that we're providing additional tech support as our kids are kind of now cyber schooling. We have to provide emotional support to everybody in the family. We have to entertain everybody. We have to keep everybody spirited up. So this is really an overwhelming list of things that we're responsible for doing. A Sisyphean effort. So remember, Sisyphus was the guy who had to push a boulder uphill and then it rolled back down the same day. I often think that with the shutdown, and certainly with everybody home, and you know, all the cleaning and laundry and work and emotions and words. That's one thing about having 4 girls is, you know, there's plenty of words that are always being spoken all the time, and they need to be reacted to. It's really not, this is not really a sustainable position. So as Dr. Holder went through in her talk last week, you know, this is not regular working from home or telework or homeschooling or whatever. It's working in a crisis, right? So we're homeschooling in a crisis. We're cyber-ish schooling in a crisis. There is no one good way to do this. A lot of moms I've talked to say, you know, I feel like I'm failing. Well, there's not a win here. There's a survive. I think the sooner we kind of wrap our heads around that, then, you know, as far as meeting our expectations, I think we'll come out of this better and happier and more relaxed. So Dr. Fuller gave a talk, which is she's going to make available, about self-care, self-compassion in particular, and reducing your expectations as a parent. On the other hand, you know, there are some bright sides. Like I've kind of appreciated as a society where we figure out what's really important and what's really not. And I thought this is great. So this female cartoonist, Emily Flake, published this on the Monday after Ukraine shut down on Friday the 13th. My God, there have been emails, and I think there's an amazing amount of things, I would say, through my work at the hospital that have been dropped because that's not that critical at the moment. So, you know, we can use kind of rethink what's really, really important versus what we're sort of doing because it was habit or, I don't know, required. So kids in general are going through a whole lot of psychological stress right now. And I think the key to managing them at home is to had a big change in their routine and their structures. They don't go to activities. They've lost their access to a whole lot of people. You know, their church families, whatever the community is, they've pretty much lost physical access to them. And kids are grieving. You know, this is a real loss. A lot of times, you know, kids.
Sorry, Dr. Farace.
Yes.
You keep toggling between being muted and unmuted. So okay. I kept unmuting you, but I just wanted to point out, just in case there's a button or something, so that we can hear all of your presentation.
I will take my hands off the keyboard. Okay, so like I said, kids are suffering from loss and grief. The world is not ideal for them right now. And a lot of times kids have got it to this point where pretty much their world is ideal. It doesn't mean that they don't have millions of complaints, but this may be the first kind of major hurdle that they've gone through, and they need your help. They need to process this loss and grief with you. Anxiety is a big issue, both your anxiety and their anxiety. And again, something to acknowledge with them and help them work through. And then a lot of our kids are struggling with boredom. You know, we tend to, and I'm the biggest guilty factor of this, we tend to overschedule our kids. It's sort of a big problem across society. And now they're no longer overscheduled. You know, the bright side is that means they have a little bit more freedom about what to do, what to think, or what to, you know, what choices to make, because they're not just running all day from morning until bedtime. But on the other hand, they may not be at all experienced with that, and they need some help from you as far as kind of turning that boredom into something that's useful. And then children, as they're developing, you know, as they get older and older, they become more and more verbal, but they're still children. They tend to cope with stress by changing behaviors more than they do with talking. So they can become more clingy, more anxious, they can get more withdrawn, they can become more angry, shorter fuse. Regression, as in the form of bedwetting and that kind of thing, is not at all uncommon, and it's very expected. And it's okay. Basically, at this point in time, you need to give your children opportunities to play and to relax. That's a blessing of the flip side of this shutdown, which is that they have all the time to play and to relax, and probably to do a whole bunch of other things. So yeah, we all suffer from a certain amount of clinginess, and that gets in the way of our ability to work. I threw people out of my home office right when this talk started, and they were, one was my husband and one was a kid, and there's still a cat in here, but I got one of the other cats out, and I sent out a text to the family and said, I'm going live right now giving a talk. Please wait till 2:30 to come in my room, or don't, and it will make the talk more relevant. One of my teenagers wrote back and said, okay, I have a list of questions I'm going to ask. I don't think she's on the call, but you never know. That's not her. And so here's my example of cleanliness. I was working last night, and I looked up to this picture, which you can see here is a little unnerving. All right, so as we kind of went into this shutdown, we talked a lot about your kids are going to need structure. So your kids do need structure. The younger they are, the more structure they need. But at the same time, they need a fair amount of flexibility. And so there's no real answer to structure versus not. You know your kids the best. What do they need? So try to stick to old routines that work. And I think since we've all been home, you know, people have been trying to stick to their routines and figuring out what doesn't work, and then creating new routines that work better. You know, screen time use is on the huge rise in kids, and I'm going to say that's fine right now. And I'm generally an anti-screen time person. Like, my biological daughter didn't watch TV until she was 4. Never saw a screen before that. But now I'm like, you know what? Our daily movie night turns out to be a really good choice for us all, where we can all kind of come back together and sit down and watch something and discuss it all together. So you need a structure as much as your children seem to need, and otherwise then you need to let it go. And then another theme I'm going to talk about this talk is about kids needing to sleep. So kids need regular bedtime, and more sleep begets sleep, right? So the more well-rested kids are, actually the easier it is to get them to go down. And everybody in this scenario is a little bit short, like I said, short on reserve, short on your fuse. So everyone can cope better if they have enough sleep. I can see it on the internet was making the rounds about it's not about how tired you are, it's about how tired you're making everybody else trying to explain to the kid. And again, this created some on social media about, an example schedule to have at home. It looks great. I looked at it as a psychologist and thought, yes, that is perfect. That is exactly what should be happening. And then this schedule started to circulate, which I think is a little bit more real. All right, so I'm going to go through and kind of give some tips and tricks for how to work from home with kids at different age ranges, because they do need different things, and I kind of roughly broke them up. But there's overlaps in between them, preschool to elementary, middle school, et cetera. So I'm just going to include it all, and please take anything that's helpful for you. All right, so if you're working during this time at home with a baby, meaning under age 2, you are really in the trenches. And this is a very difficult time, no matter what. Despite the and even as kids are, so I have a friend who had a newborn right before the shutdown, and she says, he's doing fine. He doesn't really know any different. He's never left. And he may have some interesting experiences once he does get to leave the house. But even tiny babies can feel lost, but they just don't know how to express very much about it. So keep that in mind, that sometimes we think babies are kind of blank slates and they don't really know anything of what's going on, but they do. They're very sensitive about it. They don't know how to express it.
Dr. Farace?
Yes.
Can I ask you to pause again? We're having, it's a little choppy on our end. We're getting some comments in the comment box. I just want to see if you can check your connection, or if there's, I don't know if there's anything you can do to improve your connection on your end, just to make sure everyone can hear everything as clearly as possible.
I don't think so. I may be at the limit of my Wi-Fi.
Okay, yeah. So we'll just do the best we can. Thanks so much.
Mm-hmm. So one tip to working at home with a baby is babies do need 12 to 16 hours sleep a day. And I got through this myself by working, she would go to sleep at 6 p.m. and wake up at 6 a.m. And I could get a lot done, all night long. And the link I have at the bottom here has a whole bunch of good tips and tricks. Essentially, it's bring your baby with you. Try baby wearing, put them in a bouncer, put them in a playpen where they're safe, and a couple of toys. They learn to self-soothe during this amount of time. They can take a long time to eat. So one of the tips I saw said, make sure you can play on your smartphone and, answer work emails and things like that while they're feeding. But yeah, essentially this is a tough time pretty much regardless. In preschool, the preschoolers can get really overwhelmed easily by too many new experiences. So they're very much creatures of routine, and they need lots of reassurance and lots of compassion. Sleeping is important for preschoolers, and it's a struggle to work from home because, like with a baby, one adult basically has to have eyes on the preschool age kid to keep them safe and keep them out of too much trouble. One of the articles I read described somebody who kind of looked away from their preschooler for a minute, and somehow they pulled a bag of flour out of the cupboard and managed to dump it all over themselves and the kitchen. So yeah, it's got to be eyes on. I do know some moms who've coped by giving them their own kind of nearby workspace, like a box. And they can draw on the box. You can connect boxes to other things, or they can pretend that boxes are things. And I suggest giving them times of undivided attention. So if you're kind of constantly half working and half paying attention to your preschooler, they'll start to act out to get your attention. But if there's times where you really focus on them and kind of give them your attention, then actually they can do some things on their own afterwards. Don't feel like you need to entertain them. At this age, they love just being included with whatever it is you do. So bring them along for housework, have them help you put socks in the dryer, or, move the shoes around the house, or do that kind of thing. Load the dishwasher with you. Keep in mind what you do, and they're thoroughly entertained. It's not like you have to sit down and find age-appropriate arts and crafts and do them 16 hours a day that they're awake. Try to include them in what you do. And then also, encourage them to play imagination games. So as they develop that ability, they can really well entertain themselves. Maybe they get out their stuffed animals and run, a pretend preschool program with them. Or my daughter used to say things like, "Mommy, imagine you're a cow." And I would say, "I'm a cow, moo." And that would keep her happy for about 20 minutes until she would say, "Now you're," and then I would work on that. So schedules need to be predictable. And another small tip is, most of our kids have way too many toys. A friend of mine said she went in and she put them into boxes, like divided them up by theme or however, and then only pulls out one box every day or two until they get tired of those toys. And then she picks them all up, puts them in a box, puts them away in storage, and pulls out another box. So it's a good way to kind of get a lot of use out of your, whereas if you have all the toys out at the same time, that will work faster. Schoolers, so they know about the virus, but it's important to limit virus talk around them. Same thing with even some young kids, depending on their level. You have to talk about it and then leave it alone. If you and your house are kind of going on about it, it can instill a lot of fears. And you want to validate their feelings. Like, yes, this is scary, but if, we stay home and we stay safe, and, we'll get through this fine. They often can use their own space. Who has like a teepee tent in her home office. And when she goes to work, her elementary schooler goes to work, and he gets his work and she does hers, so they're near but not right in each other. And she can get a lot of work done that way. Giving them time for free play is really good. I know I once went on a trip and I really had to write a talk in a short period of time. Granted, we were in a hotel and I wasn't paying the water bill, but I let my daughter, who was like 8 or 9 at the time, take a bath for like literally 8 hours. She just played in the water and more water in and took more water out. So I'm things like that can occupy them. I suggest a weekly calendar or schedule. Don't try to go too far out, because then you hit up on things where you have to say, like, "Oh yeah, this is canceled. This is canceled. This is going to happen." And take suggestions from your kids. Ask your elementary schoolers, what do you want to do on Friday? Do you want to make it a double feature movie night? Or do you want to go out for a 2-hour hike? Kids, elementary age, still need 9 to 11 hours sleep a day. That is a long time, where hopefully that makes you gain 4 or 5 at least uninterrupted hours. Maybe not your best hours, they may be in the middle of the night, but it gets you back some time. I found this on what kids do during Zoom meetings. All right, so in middle schoolers are very concerned about how they connect the world. And I read some articles that they're having extra trouble doing cyber-schooling because of sort of general self-consciousness is kind of getting particularly worse when they're on Zoom. You know, they have so much evaluate each other based on looks, or they think they're being evaluated based on looks, or being different, or standing out. So just be aware that they're going to struggle extra to do any kind of video classes. At this age, as close as they may be to their friends, there's a certain out of sight, out of mind, so they can feel really, really distant from people if they aren't around them daily. So you can help them stay connected with whatever conferencing you have available, and remember, their friends are more important than you are, and so it can really, really help them to be able to connect with their friends. Know that you're going to get mood swings. That's a normal part of this age. I said don't acknowledge, maybe don't reinforce is kind of what I meant. So, and my husband's advice is always don't take it personally, they're just a kid. But those are challenging. Middle schoolers still need a lot of sleep a day. And in middle school, it can really make a big difference to kids to keep up positive messaging. You know, tell them, you know, I know it's hard, but I'm really happy I get to see you every day. I get to see you all day long, every day. You know, I think you're doing a really good job, you know, making a way through this. Middle schoolers, you know, preteens, when they start to get so prickly, it's easy to kind of, as a parent, withdraw a little and try to put up a protective shell, and then they forget to give them the positives. So that's really, really important. And I did see this tweet in respect to preteens. I don't have a favorite kid, but I do have one I try extra hard not to wake up. And then high school, and I wrote the most about high school, partly because I have 3 right now, 2 sophomores and a senior. So they've got some real losses going on. Not that the other younger kids don't, but you know, things they've been told their whole life that they can remember about, you know, graduation, senior year, you know, music productions, activities, all this stuff. They've lost. And teenagers, they really need extra support to help manage feelings. They're not going to come to you necessarily and say, I'm not managing my feelings, but they really need you to reach out and check in on them. With my kids, I talk about a weather report. So we're doing a little bit of, we're just repainting the bathrooms. And the last time we did a little DIY home project, one of my daughters got really, really depressed. I'm still not sure why, frankly. But as we were painting, I would come to her and say, okay, I'm just doing a weather check. You're okay with this? You know, is there a way we can make it more comfortable for you? And she said, could you please stop making noise while I'm on a Zoom call with my class? And I said, okay, I understand. Help your kids find alternative ways to connect. And teenagers need to sleep. 8 to 10 hours a day is a number I can tell you my teenagers have never gotten up until this point in time. But we've been letting them sleep, and actually it's improving their mood and their overall abilities a whole lot. Reassure the kids that it's okay to feel sad about the situation. Give them time to grieve their missed milestones and celebrations. Don't try to tell your teenagers how they feel. It turns out may not be as effective as others. So for kids who are naturally introverts and or kids with a lot of social anxiety, they may actually appreciate in some ways being out of, you know, the rat race and not being right up in the middle of everything and being overscheduled, running around. It's important to share your feelings with your children. Always be honest with them. But try not to overshare because then they're going to stress about you not being there for them. but particularly if there's a healthcare worker in the home who's leaving to start seeing patients, you know, as you walk out the door, don't say, well, I hope I don't catch the virus and die, you know, see ya, right? Not that you would ever do that, but it's important not to kind of overshare and say like, yeah, I'm concerned, but that concern just makes me pay more attention to keeping myself safe. You know, I use all the appropriate equipment. I have everything that I need, and I come home and shower immediately, and you know, throw clothes in the washing machine, or whatever your routine is. It's important to admit to them when you don't know something. So particularly as lockdown started, my kids were asking my husband and I all kinds of questions about how this was going to work. And, you know, we finally just said, you know, we don't know. We haven't lived through this yet. I know we're like ancient, super old, but we haven't lived this yet. So we don't really have a reference either. You know, I think that actually helped them feel more secure. To also, you know, it's part of trust with your kids, knowing that if you can answer a question, you will, and if you can't, you won't just make something up. It's so important to build resilience. So, you know, all your kids have gone through some things before and arrived. And it's important to kind of talk them through and point that out. Like, yes, this is really hard. You've been through other hard things and you survived. And so here you have options to move forward, and you're going to survive this too. We're all going to, you know, we're all going to move on, and there'll be another challenge that comes on after that. That's what life is all about. You're strong and you're resilient. Allow teenagers their privacy. You know, there's sometimes when my kids are all running around and I think, oh, please go in your room and shut your door. But then there's times when I get lonely and they're all in their rooms with their door shut. But they need their own downtime and their privacy. And they need to be socially connected. And sometimes they don't need mom and dad right on top of them when they're talking to their friends over FaceTime. We've allowed our teenagers to kind of find their own circadian rhythm. Some of the school districts in the area are actually moving start times until later, because it turns out that teenagers in particular staying up later and sleeping in later. And so having high school that starts, you know, 7 o'clock in the morning is not ideal for education. We've actually been letting them find their own circadian rhythm. They're staying up later than us, and they get up a lot later than us. But at the same time, they seem like better rested than they ever have. And they've been getting work done in time. So we figure they don't have anything else to do, let them sleep and be more productive when they're awake. It's important to be clear and predictable to them when you're not available. And the reason that's important is because, you know, again, teenagers don't always come to you with issues, but if they come to you, you better meet them where they are right then. So if you aren't available, like I'm going to talk right now, as soon as I'm done, I will go follow up with them all and find out, you know, what issues came up and how they're doing. And try to still celebrate their achievements. So we actually had an at-home prom for our senior. My kids figured out how to do a Xbox just dance group dance party thing. You know, got dressed up. It was cute. And we're actually having a less than 10-person social distancing graduation ceremony. My oldest is graduating from state a week from Saturday, you know, virtually. And we bought her a cap and a gown and a tassel, and we're all going to watch it together. You know, got some other kind of surprises of messaging to people to congratulate her. So she individually, hopefully, will feel celebrated. All right, so that's kind of mostly what I wanted to talk about. Understand there's no one answer to work-life balance. Not now, and there never has been, and there probably never will be. You know, I spent most of my working mom life feeling like I'm either doing a good job as a mom or I'm doing a good job as a worker, and it's, you know, never enough to do both. In the way you know, the way to cope with that is to basically understand that you're doing good enough and you're doing the best that you can in all these areas. Listen to your kids, check in with them, find out what they need. Sometimes they'll ask for the smallest things that really don't make a big difference. They ask for something really big, say, I'm sorry, we can't. So do what you can of what your kids need, and take time at the end of every day to congratulate yourself. I the other day, you know, my kids are safe, they're home, they survived, I haven't killed anybody, it's all good. Understand that working from home is not just work at home, it is your home. And I know we have some HR folks on the phone, but I will say it is your home first. And so if your kids need you, spend time with your kids and then work. So I think we're going to have time for follow-up questions, but you might want to jot down my email if you have anything you want to kind of bring to light after this. You can, I think the copy of this talk would be available, and all the links that I've had are where I've gotten some of my ideas, and they're also probably worth looking through. And then finally, as much as I like to joke, I love my kids, and I really have to applaud them. You know, they've stayed indoors more than they've ever done. All the world's turned upside down. So I really think there are little heroes, and this whole generation is going to be better and more empathic, I think, moving forward. And I think as parents, we do what we can do to make sure this helps them become better people. And Dr. Holder asked me to include this. We have a staff support hotline. I'm one of the volunteers on the hotline. There's a whole bunch of people. If you call the hotline for emotional, spiritual, or psychological support, you can talk to one of the chaplains. And if it's something that needs to kind of bump up a professional level, then, like I said, there's volunteers from psychiatry and behavioral health, other psychologists around the institution who are here to help. Contact the Office for Professional Health where Dr. Holder works. And she also wanted me to share this so people can do their evaluation. I think that's it. Yep. All right. Take any questions, or Dr. Holder, do you have questions you want to pass on to me?
I'm looking in the chat box to see if anyone has any questions. I will just start while we'll see if anybody puts anything in there. I have 3 kids that I'm supposedly homeschooling, and every day has been an adventure. If I told you all the things that happened just today, my guess is you all probably have your own stories if you're on here, because you are saving your lives and other people's lives by staying home and being with your children. So I appreciate what you shared with us, Dr. Farace. I like how you broke it up by age and kind of gave us some ideas of different things that we can do to support our children, and being mindful of supporting ourselves. Yep, somebody said, yes, my 2 have been a new challenge every day. So there's agreement here. This is definitely new territory. I like how you ended your presentation with a thank you to the kids, because I don't think we think about that much often. In managing our own stress, sometimes we can forget how difficult this might be for them. Maybe you can tell us maybe 1 or 2 really simple things we can do to honor our kids as they, shelter in place as well.
So I think, I think talking to them about it and praising them for it. It's not like they had a choice. And you can, sometimes I think kids appreciate you acknowledging that. I know this isn't how you wanted it to go. I know you didn't ask for this to happen, but you've been coping with it very well. You've been very brave and very strong, and I appreciate that. And then you always want to take the flip side and say, you know what, though, if there's times that you don't feel brave and you're scared, feel free to talk to me. I'm here for you. You know, we're all doing our best, sort of the we're all in this together kind of thing. What we're doing is good for humanity, even though it's really challenging on an individual level.
Yeah, that is true. So giving them some validation and on both fronts for what they are doing and putting up with, but that it's okay if they want to talk more or feel nervous or afraid.
Right. And as I was going through talking about, you know, reducing, you know, the virus talk around them. I mean, if they watch any TV with commercials or listen to the radio, you know, every commercial is, you know, in these challenging times, buy our stuff. You know, so they rarely go minutes without some kind of a reminder, and I worry about them. So one of my youngest stepdaughter, when she came to live with me, she was 6. Someone in the house, her grandfather had MRSA. So he'd had an infection of, you know, methicillin-resistant staph aureus. And, you know, they were struggling to kind of get it under control. And nobody ever talked to her about it. Nobody ever thought she knew about it. But in the discussions of MRSA, somehow she picked up the idea that she could be asleep and get this infection and die in her sleep. So when she came to live with me, kids fight sleep. She was a sleep fighter. I mean, she was terrified to go to sleep because somehow in sort of hearing bits and pieces, but nobody ever discussing it with her directly, you know, she was worried she was going to contract and then die from MRSA overnight. And we worked with her a lot to kind of, you know, both sort of explain what it was that everybody was talking about, point out that grandpa was fine. You know, he took his medicine and then, you know, everything worked out, that she's not going to contract that. And, you know, it was a several month long struggle. So I wouldn't be surprised if kids, particularly younger kids, aren't, you know, worried about things that they may not even be worried about. So it's probably a good idea to kind of check in with them and sort of let them know, like, this virus it's not like pollen, you know, it's not radiation. It doesn't spread, you know, it doesn't spread all the different, you know, scary ways you can think of. There's a couple of ways, and, you know, we know what they are and we do our best to take protection against them.
Yeah, we had some really good comments in the box. I'm just going to read them. Someone said, bedtime is tough at our house. Every night is something new. Stalling tactics are getting out of control. And so you just spoke to that by talking about sleep. Trudy says, appreciate that you broke it out by age. High schoolers are challenging, keeping them on their schedule and not nagging them about schoolwork. And then Tanya added, I love the idea of giving kids a chance to choose activities for the week. As a teacher, mom, and special instructor for early intervention, I love the idea of a yes day. In a time where we can only be at home, it is important for our children to have days where the answer is yes for most things. Yeah, I like that idea of a yes day too. It kind of frees them up, you know. It's a wonderful idea. And it's good for us just to say, you know what, today I'm just going to say yes, unless it gets completely unreasonable, you know. But for the most part, yeah, why not? Yeah, why not? Let's try it. So I like that idea. I'm going to incorporate that into maybe this week or next week.
That sounds good. I've been trying to say yes with some caveats. So they'll say, you know, can I try to make pudding or flan from scratch? And I'll say yes, but you're going to clean up the kitchen.
Yes.
And, you know, sometimes that's worth it. And sometimes they're like, no, I'll find something else to do. Like, okay, just, you know, I'll say yes, but you can't add to my list then.
That's right. Yeah. And it's important to have those boundaries, you know, because one yes can't imply an unreasonable yes on me, you know. Angela just put in there, I feel like all 3 of my kids hit a growth spurt as soon as the shutdown hit. There just isn't enough food to go around in the house. Yep. And then someone has here, I appreciate the let it go. you have to choose battles, and I've learned to just let some things be. Yep, and that's what letting go is about, letting it be. It is already, and you know, it doesn't have to be a fight, which is another thing we could talk about with kids and fights, but you know, just doing our best. So Dr. Farace, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us and share all this really great information with us today.
No, well, thank you for having me.
Well, you all have Dr. Farace's email if you want to reach out to her. Please do the evaluation if you can. That'll help us kind of figure out what more things we can supply and support you guys during this work from home and shelter in place and change of everything kind of season. We want to be able to give you guys as much support as possible. All right. And with that, I guess we could say goodbye.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Post the link in the chat. Dr. Farace, can you put your email in the chat so that people can see it again?
Sure.
Oh, and Trudy, the link for the evaluation, can you put that in the chat?
Oh, yeah, I gotta
You
find
can
it.
paste it. Sorry. All right, thanks everybody.
Bye.
Let's see if I can find that link too.
Is this the one?
Here, I will cut and
Is that the right one?
Which one? Yep, I think that's it. All right, I guess we will sign off too.
Is she gonna send us a copy of the